Let's start with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Anshu Khanna, they made some moves this offseason. I don't know if you heard, and I'm just sort of vamping here because I forgot to pull this up. They add Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and Mike Muscala. They draft Darius Baisley, who spent last year working at a shoe company. They lose Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Jeremy Grant, and Markieff Morris. What do you think of the Thunder's chances this year?
Yeah, slight downgrade there
Yeah.
in talent. I mean, it's going to be interesting. The question, obviously, around this team is how long does Chris Paul remain on the Thunder? We talked about Charlotte being the worst team. I think this team is probably a little too good to be the worst,
Mm-hmm.
but, the way they made those trades was simply to assemble for the next, 4, 5, 6, 8 years from now. And, this is step two in the long process of rebuilding this from the ground up. So while like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is kind of exciting and there are other pieces here. Chris Paul's the name,
Mm-hmm.
and Steven Adams is a name. I just like cobbled together. I don't know that this team is sniffing the playoffs in the West.
Yeah, on paper, I honestly don't think it's that bad a team as long as Chris Paul stays relatively healthy. If you have a starting lineup of Paul, Gilgeous-Alexander, Andre Roberson, Gallinari, and Steven Adams, that's not bad. That is certain. That's
Noel
not
off the bench.
right. That is not in contention for, say, the worst team in the league with and Schroeder, guys like that. But what do you think the likelihood is that give me your percentages for all of them for Chris Paul, Gallinari, and Steven Adams to be members of this team at the end of the season?
I mean, it's increasingly high from last to first, I would say. Like someone's going to make a move for Paul. I don't know. I've seen some stuff in Buck's Twitter about trying to cobble a bunch of pieces together to make a play at Paul, but to me, that's just suicide because this is the worst
Yeah.
contract in basketball, or top three, bottom three. I think that Gallinari, it's really just dependent on how healthy he is and how his shooting is, because if it's not there, then he's a zero. But if he's healthy and he's able to shoot a little bit like he's been in the past, he's a very useful piece that probably doesn't require a lot in exchange, right? Like they're just trying to dump that salary probably, and get worse. And then Adams, I mean, it's just tough with Adams because while he's a really fun player and a quality player, he's misplaced in this era. And rim protectors are important, especially in the playoffs. But again, when you think of what it would require to trade a guy like Adams at
Mhm.
his age, I mean, I just don't think it would take a whole lot to just rip him off their books, right?
Yeah, it's such a shame that 'cause I love Steven Adams as a player, and it's such a shame that he didn't come along 30 years ago. Because
Exactly.
if he did, I think we'd be talking about him like in that conversation with the Rick Smiths and all of those great centers who played in the 80s and early 90s. But in today's NBA, he just doesn't make sense. I am a lot higher on Gallo than you are. Gallo is a guy who I love in a modern NBA. Obviously, you're right. Health is an issue. Hasn't played more than 71 games since his second year in the league, I guess, 29 in 09 and 2010 when he played 81 games, never played 82. Played 68 last year, though, averaged 20 points, 6 rebounds, shot 43% from 3, 90% from the line. This guy has a lot of value as a elite stretch 4 in today's NBA. It's just a matter of, you're right, that contract is significant.
Yeah, and what do you get back for a player like that? Like, I mean, and what do you even get back for Chris Paul? I think that they've traded the pieces that they will get significant value for, unless they decide that they're so far down the line that Gilgeous-Alexander becomes a tradable asset. I mean, I doubt it, but
Mhm.
maybe they decide, look, this all our picks are going to come to their fruition 4 years from now, and this is year three, right, for Gilgeous-Alexander, so maybe he doesn't fit into our time frame down the line, and so that becomes an interesting piece if you have to grab him, package him into a Chris Paul deal to get that contract off the books. I don't think that's what they'll do,
No.
but it's not out of the realm in my mind just to get creative to try to get these salaries off, because even with teams getting desperate towards the trade deadline or with injuries, I still don't see anyone taking on Paul or Adams for anything more than just taking on the deal.
I agree with you on Paul. I'm not 100% sure on Adams. I don't think there's any chance that they just package Gilgeous-Alexander to get rid of the Chris Paul contract. I really don't.
No,
I think
it would
they
be to
see him
get
as a building
something.
block.
I think so too. But look, year three, right? Like, I mean, he's got 2 years left, and you have to make the decision on if he's a max guy for you. And I look, I think he's interesting. They definitely will try him out for a bit and see. But I wouldn't shock me if they decide that he's the piece that helps them get even more pieces down the line,
Maybe.
just timeline wise.
Timeline. He's in. He is making $3.9 million under team control for 3 more seasons if you count in the QO after this one. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I mean, we forget he was a rookie last year, and he had a nice little rookie campaign as a late lottery pick. And I think
I thought he was in
Gallo
the league for 2 years. That's on me. Okay, that makes more sense.
And when are we going to learn? I hope by now, from what we've seen this preseason, that we stop sleeping on hyphenated Canadian combo guards, because especially from that family. Yeah, from that family, his cousin Nickel-Alexander Walker is having himself a heck of a preseason and making a case to earn minutes in New Orleans. But I think Gallo's a really good fit for a team we're going to talk about later, the Portland Trailblazers.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Again, guys, just got to stay healthy, Gallo. But he's always had that unique skill set, and really, when he first came into the league, it was just the beginning of seeing the value of the Schusty, 4 essentially in the NBA.